So all the way back in January, about 5 months ago, Shigeru Miyamoto did an interview, and funny enough, it took as long as just a few days ago for this interview to reach the attention of the gaming community in the Western world. And yeah, it is kind of funny how as connected we are in our world with the internet and translation services, sometimes there is a bit of a gap or a lapse of time of which it takes sometimes for information learned by the Japanese gaming community to reach the Western gaming community. So just 4 days ago on Wednesday, this interview was translated and reposted on the Fami Boards forum, and then a couple days later on Friday, it was reposted on the Reset Era forum, so now it's gotten a lot more attention in the Western gaming community. A lot of interesting stuff in this interview, a lot of insight on how Nintendo thinks of their business operations, and something big that was highlighted by a lot of people that looked into this interview was Miyamoto talking about Nintendo's strategy, or rather their goal on how often they want to sell hit games, specifically games that reach over 30 million sales. So he said that basically in a nutshell, Nintendo's thought process, and specifically his thought process, is that Nintendo wants a game to sell at least 30 million copies once every 3 to 5 years. Now 30 million sales is a lot of sales, so let me give you some perspective. Out of all of the games in the entire world, not just by Nintendo but by everybody, there are a total of 26 games that have reached that milestone of getting 30 million or more sales. Yeah, 26 games total, and funny enough, exactly half, so 13 of those games, are by Nintendo, if I counted that correctly on Wikipedia, and I think I counted it pretty accurately. And if you are curious, the first one is all the way back in 1985, Super Mario Bros. For the NES. Then you got 2 on the Game Boy Color, which is the first generation of Pokemon and Tetris. You got 1 on the DS, New Super Mario Bros., and then 5 on the Wii. The Wii, by the way, has the highest selling Nintendo video game of all time, and I'm very curious to know if all of you just know that off the top of your head. I'll say it at the very end of this video. What the highest selling Nintendo video game is. I doubt many people know it, but maybe I'm wrong. It did surprise me. And then there are 4 on the Switch. So 4, I would say, recently within the last 6 or 7 years. Now, doing the math, if you exclude the 1 on the NES and the 2 on the Game Boy Color that were decades ago, you've got a total of 10 Nintendo games that sold over 30 million copies within the last, 20 years. So actually doing the math, that's about one game that sold 30 million copies every 2 years rather than 3 to 5. So I would actually say I'm pretty surprised by this goal. I would think they should have a much higher goal than that. I mean, don't let me decide what Nintendo's goals are at the end of the day. I mean, I'm just one person. Nintendo obviously has their strategy. But yeah, I would think, especially as the world gets bigger and the gaming population gets bigger, I would think 30 million sales for a game once every 3 to 5 years is actually not that much of a challenge for Nintendo. But I digress. So, overall, this tells me that going forward, especially in the next console, the Switch 2 or whatever it'll be called, you definitely know that at the very least, once every 3 to 5 years, they will really be pushing for a hit game. I'm very much expecting this trend to continue, at least with the 4 game series whose installments on the Switch got over 30 million sales. In case you are curious, these 4 games on the Switch are Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, Animal Crossing New Horizons, Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, and Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. With Mario Kart being the top position at 61 million and Animal Crossing being number 2 at 45 million. Which, by the way, there's another thing that I guess I was really out of the loop on. I did not know Animal Crossing was really that popular. And also the fact that you don't have a mainline Mario game on this list. Yeah, surprisingly, Super Mario Odyssey only got 27 million sales. So yeah, whatever the next installments on the Switch 2 of Mario Kart, Animal Crossing, Super Smash Bros., and Zelda are, I'm sure those and maybe more will be games that we can expect to have at least 30 million sales. Oh, and in case you were curious, that game that I mentioned that is the highest selling game of all time for Nintendo, that is Wii Sports with 82.9 million sales. Am I the only one that was surprised by that? I honestly did not know Wii Sports was honestly that big. So going forward, I mean, I don't know if we're gonna get a Nintendo game to break 82 million sales anytime soon, but according to Miyamoto's strategy and, well, Nintendo's strategy, we can expect a game to reach at least 30 million sales every 3 to 5 years.